Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. This morning we'll be in Ezra chapter 8, verse 21 through chapter 9, verse 15. I called for a fast there by the Ahava Canal, so that we might humble ourselves before our God and seek from him a safe journey for us, our children, and all our property. I was embarrassed to request soldiers and horsemen from the king to protect us from the enemy along the way, because we had said to the king, "The good hand of our God is on everyone who is seeking him, but his great anger is against everyone who forsakes him." So we fasted and prayed to our God about this, and he answered us. Then I set apart 12 of the leading priests, together with Sherebiah, Hashabiah, and 10 of their brothers. And I weighed out to them the silver, the gold, and the vessels intended for the temple of our God, items that the king, his advisors, his officials, and all Israel who were present had contributed. I weighed out to them 650 talents of silver, silver vessels worth 100 talents, 100 talents of gold, 20 gold bowls worth 1,000 derricks, and 2 exquisite vessels of gleaming bronze as valuable as gold. Then I said to them, "You are holy to the Lord, just as these vessels are holy. The silver and the gold are a voluntary offering to the Lord, the God of your fathers. Be careful with them and protect them, until you weigh them out before the leading priests and the Levites, and the family leaders of Israel, and Jerusalem, and the storerooms of the temple of the Lord." Then the priests and the Levites took charge of the silver, the gold, and the vessels that had been weighed out, to transport them to Jerusalem, to the temple of our God. On the 12th day of the first month we began traveling from the Ahava Canal to go to Jerusalem. The hand of our God was on us, and he delivered us from our enemy and from bandits along the way. So we came to Jerusalem, and we stayed there for 3 days. On the 4th day we weighed out the silver, the gold, and the vessels in the house of our God into the care of Meremoth, son of Uriah the priest, and Eleazar, son of Phinehas, who were accompanied by Jozabad, son of Jeshua, and Noadiah, son of Binnui, who were Levites. Everything was verified by number and by weight, and the total weight was written down at that time. The exiles, who were returning from the captivity, offered burnt offerings to the God of Israel, 12 bulls for all Israel, 96 rams, 77 male lambs, along with 12 male goats as a sin offering. All this was a burnt offering to the Lord. Then they presented the decrees of the king to the kings, satraps, and the governors of Trans-Euphrates, who gave help to the people and to the temple of God. Now, when these things had been completed, the leaders approached me and said, "The people of Israel, the priests and the Levites, have not separated themselves from the local residents who practice detestable things, similar to those of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Egyptians, and the Amorites. Indeed, they have taken some of their daughters as wives for themselves and for their sons, so that the holy race has become intermingled with the local residents. Worse still, the leaders and the officials have been at the forefront of all this." When I heard this report, I tore my tunic and my robe and ripped out some of the hair from my head and beard. Then I sat down, quite devastated. Everyone who held the words of the God of Israel in awe gathered around me because of the unfaithful acts of the people of the exile. Devastated, I continued to sit there until the evening offering. At the time of the evening offering, I got up from my self-abasement, with my tunic and robe torn, and then dropped to my knees and spread my hands to the Lord my God. I prayed, "O my God, I am ashamed and embarrassed to lift my face to you, my God, for our iniquities have climbed higher than our heads, and our guilt extends to the heavens. From the days of our fathers until this very day, our guilt has been great. Because of our iniquities, we, along with our kings and priests, have been delivered over by the local kings to sword, captivity, plunder, and embarrassment, right up to the present time. But now, briefly, we have received mercy from the Lord our God, in that he has left us a remnant and has given us a secure position in his holy place. Thus our God has enlightened our eyes and has given us a little relief in our time of servitude. Although we are slaves, our God has not abandoned us in our servitude. He has extended kindness to us in the sight of the kings of Persia, in that he has revived us to restore the temple of our God and to raise up its ruins, and to give us a protective wall in Judah and Jerusalem. And now, what are we able to say after this, our God? For we have forsaken your commandments, which you commanded us through your servants the prophets, with these words: The land that you are entering to possess is the land defiled by the impurities of the local residents. With their abominations they have filled it, from one end to the other with their filthiness. Therefore do not give your daughters in marriage to their sons, and do not take their daughters in marriage for your sons. Do not even seek their peace or welfare, so that you may be strong and may eat the good of the land and may leave it as an inheritance for your children forever. Everything that has happened to us has come about because of our wicked actions and our great guilt. Everyone, even so, our God, you have exercised restraint toward our iniquities and have given us a remnant such as this. Shall we once again break your commandments and intermarry with these abominable peoples? Would you not be so angered by us that you would wipe us out with no survivor or remnant? O Lord God of Israel, you are righteous, for we are left as a remnant to this day. Indeed, we stand before you in our guilt. However, because of this guilt, no one can really stand before you. So you have Ezra returning from the captivity with a contingent of priests and Levites. And he had said to the king that the good hand of our God is on everyone who is seeking him, but his great anger is against everyone who forsakes him. So he was embarrassed to ask for a troop to protect this group. And the massive amounts of money that they were carrying, like 100 talents of gold. So, but they end up being safe along the way. And when they get there, they discovered that the remnant that had come before them was already committing the sins that their forefathers had committed, that eventually led to them being kicked out of the land. That is, they were intermarrying with the peoples who were committing these abominable idolatries. And thus, as their forefathers were, they would eventually be led astray, because it's impossible to intermarry and not share some of the some connection with that. And indeed, like, they were often led astray by the idolatrous feasts and orgies that were held by the pagans. So. Ezra recognized the generally sinful past of the tribes of Israel and how their exile was a righteous work of God against his sinful people. Ezra offered no excuses, and not even an explanation. Their conduct was indefensible and in direct disobedience to what God commanded by his servants the prophets. You, our God, have punished us less than our iniquities deserve. As severe as the exile was, Ezra recognized that it was less than the people of God deserved. People of God. As he looked at their present disobedience, he understood that it was a way of despising the great mercy God had shown in the past and meant they deserved a complete and final judgment. Carrying on. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 1 through 13. It is actually reported that sexual immorality exists among you, the kind of immorality that is not permitted even among the Gentiles, so that someone is cohabiting with his father's wife. And you are proud. Shouldn't you have been deeply sorrowful instead, and removed the one who did this from among you? For even though I am absent physically, I am present in spirit, and I have already judged the one who did this, just as though I were present. When you gather together in the name of our Lord Jesus, and I am with you in spirit, along with the power of our Lord Jesus, turn this man over to Satan for the destruction of the flesh, so that his spirit may be saved in the day of the Lord. Your boasting is not good. Don't you know that a little yeast affects the whole batch of dough? Clean out the old yeast, so that you may be a new batch of dough. You are, in fact, without yeast, for Christ, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed. So then, let us celebrate the festival, not with old yeast, the yeast of vice and evil, but with the bread without yeast, the bread of sincerity and truth. I wrote you in my letter not to associate with sexually immoral people. In no way did I mean the immoral people of this world, or the greedy and swindlers and idolaters, since you would then have to go out of the world. But now I am writing you to not associate with anyone who calls himself a Christian, who is sexually immoral, or greedy, or an idolater, or verbally abusive, or a drunkard, or swindler. Do not even eat with such a person. For what do I have to do with judging those outside? Are you not to judge those inside? But God will judge those outside. Remove the evil person from among you. I guess two thoughts concerning this. I've been reading Is God a Moral Monster by Paul Copan, and he brings up in his book, like regarding the laws of the Old Testament and how you had an awful lot of stoning for various offenses, one of which was this adultery that is being committed here. However, Paul prescribes something different than what is offered in the law of the Old Testament, that is excommunication in this case, which is a further point that the law of the Old Testament was not the law for all time, but rather a temporary condescension for the people of Israel to meet them where they were. That's not to say that there is relativism going on here. There is a perfect standard by which all men should abide, that God offers forth, partially in like the in the Sermon on the Mount with I think that's the Sermon on the Mount, where if you're angry with your brother, it's as if you had killed him, or if you even look with lust on a woman, it's as if you had committed adultery with her. This idea to completely refrain from sin and to love your neighbor and, well, love God primarily and then love your neighbor as yourself. So, yeah, also I think it demonstrates this acceptance is not good in this case, where the Corinthian church is being accepting of this diverse lifestyle of sexual immorality that this man is bringing into the church by sleeping with his father's wife. And rather than calling him out and saying this is a wrong thing to do, if you profess to be a Christian, this is a wrong thing to do, they simply let him be and remain part of the fellowship, which is not what they should be doing. Let's see what Guzik has to say here. In the ancient Greek, the word is porneia. It broadly refers to all types of sexual activity outside of marriage, including homosexuality. Originally, porneia just referred to going to prostitutes, but before New Testament times, the Jewish community used the word to refer to any kind of extramarital sex, including homosexuality. This is its sense in the New Testament. Apparently, someone was having an ongoing sexual relationship, either as married or living together with his stepmother. The woman involved must not be a Christian, for she isn't even addressed. Paul understood that this kind of incestuous relationship was considered taboo even among the pagans of their culture, yet the Corinthian Christians seemed accepting of this behavior. The ancient Roman writer and statesman Cicero said this type of incest was an incredible crime and practically unheard of. Truly, it was not even named among the Gentiles. As bad as the sin itself was, Paul was more concerned that the Corinthian Christians seemed to take the sin lightly, and they were unconcerned, have not rather mourned about this behavior. Previously in this letter, Paul dealt mainly with the mental problems of the Corinthian Christians, the wrong ideas about God's power and work in his servants. Now Paul starts to deal with their moral problems, but the two are connected. Their moral problems come because they aren't thinking right about God and his word. Clearly, this was Paul's solution to the problem, to take this notoriously unrepentant man away from the protection of the fellowship of God's people. Yet the Corinthian Christians were not doing this. Why not? How could this kind of thing be allowed? Remember that Corinth was a city notorious for sexual immorality, and the pagan religions did not value sexual purity. It wasn't hard for a Corinthian to think you could be religious, yet still act in any way you pleased when it came to sex. Greek culture could matter-of-factly say, mistresses we keep for the sake of pleasure, concubines for the daily care of the body, but wives to bear us legitimate children. Wouldn't they know it was wrong through the Old Testament? Though Leviticus 18:8 expressly forbids a man to have sex with his stepmother, the nakedness of your father's wife you shall not uncover, some rabbis, such as Rabbi Akiba, said such a relationship was permissible for a Gentile convert to Judaism because they were a completely new person and their old family relationship didn't count at all. Oh boy. More than anything, the Corinthian Christians probably allowed this in the name of tolerance. They probably said to themselves, look how loving we are. We accept this brother just as he is. Look how open-minded we are. We should never underestimate what people will allow in the name of open-mindedness. Yeah. And open-mindedness isn't is good in some circumstances and is bad in others. For instance, being open-minded about trying new foods is fine. Being open-minded about murder is not fine. Do not be open-minded about murder. And in that case, we should be open-minded only until the point where we have, like, a convincing moral argument, and then we should close our mind down onto that, oh yeah, murder is wrong, definitely should not be murdering. So, okay, carrying on. Psalm chapter 31, verses 1 through 8. In you, O Lord, I have taken shelter. Never let me be humiliated. Vindicate me by rescuing me. Listen to me. Quickly deliver me. Be my protector and refuge, a stronghold where I can be safe. For you are my high ridge and my stronghold. For the sake of your own reputation, you lead me and guide me. You will free me from the net they hid for me, for you are my place of refuge. Into your hand I entrust my life. You will rescue me, O Lord, the faithful God. I hate those who serve worthless idols, but I trust in the Lord. I will be happy and rejoice in your faithfulness, because you notice my pain, and you are aware of how distressed I am. You do not deliver me over to the power of the enemy. You enable me to stand in a wide open place. And finally, Proverbs 21, verses 1 and 2. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, like channels of water. He turns it wherever he wants. All of a person's ways seem right in his own opinion, but the Lord evaluates the motives. Yeah, I think that's another reason why it's important for us to have God for a moral compass. In that all of a person's ways seem right in his own opinion, but the Lord evaluates the motive. That is, we are so good at justifying ourselves that even if we do something wrong, it's like, oh, it's not as bad as this other person over here, or it's been a while since I've been bad. It's fine. But yeah, but what does it say? That the heart is desperately wicked. Who can know it? And Jesus himself knew the motives of man because he was a man and was not entrusting himself to any of them. That is, that ultimately we're pretty sinful at the core. So anyway, well, thanks for joining me today. Hope you have a good day. Bye.